The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi everyone, my name is Helen Dion. I am Marketing Manager for SWK Technologies. I'd like to welcome you to our webinar, Production Management, a new Sage 100 Manufacturing Solution, presented by Darren Stewart from Scanco. A little housekeeping before we get started. Everyone has been placed on mute to keep the background noise down. However, you can submit any questions you have throughout the webinar. To submit a question, look for the questions section in your GoToWebinar pod. We will answer all questions at the end of the presentation. We are recording the presentation and it will be distributed to all attendees as well as those who cannot attend tomorrow. Please take a moment at the end of the presentation to answer our short 2-question survey. With that said, we appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to attend our webinar. We're here to help you get the most out of your software solutions and help you find an easier way to run your business by providing you software, industry knowledge, tools, and support whenever you need it. We've invited Scanco to present today because they are truly the subject matter experts when it comes to comparing production management to work order in all things warehouse automation. So whether you're here doing research for a new solution or you're just here to learn, we'd like to encourage you to ask any questions throughout the webinar. Lastly, as a quick reminder, SWK is constantly sharing important updates and software tips and tricks on our social media channels, so we encourage you to follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. So without further ado, Darren, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Great, well, appreciate it. Thank you so much. And we'll get this going here. Let's see. All right. Well, everyone, thank you so much for the opportunity to present today. I'm trying to get my screen rearranged here just a minute and get this all set up so that everybody can see what we need to see. My name is Darren Stewart. I am with Scanco, and I work with the manufacturing software side of what we offer from the Scanco solution. Specifically today, the great folks at SWK have asked me to speak about production management, which is the new replacement for the work order system that has not really been touched by Sage for about 20 years. So it is built on the Sage 100 cloud framework. It is a brand new solution. It's not a rewrite of work order. It is instead an actual brand new module with a migration path to get you to where you need to be with the actual software and be able to take advantage of all the latest programming technology that Sage has built into the product of Sage 100 overall. Not a big, huge PowerPoint fan, so I'm going to try to do my best to get through this as quickly as possible because I know what everybody really wants to see is the product itself. We have had a lot of questions at Scanco over the past several months about the different types of manufacturing products that we do offer and we make available. I did want to put this graphic together so that we could kind of go through some of that with you. I will say at the very bottom, that footnote down there is actually incorrect. Some changes were made here recently, and I forgot to update my slides, so I apologize for that. But think of this as 2 lanes going down the highway. We have a lane for production management, and we've got a lane for what we call Sage 100 Cloud Manufacturing. Right now, there's a divider between those lanes, and you can't pass from one to the other or merge together into a single lane. They are 2 separate lanes, if you will. Production management is designed to do make-to-stock manufacturing. We have a new module called Inventory Requirements Planning that calculates your demand for both finished good and raw materials. We've got shop floor user, and then we have some add-ons. The things that are in red are sold direct from Scanco through SWK. The things that are in green, are on the Sage 100 price sheet, and SWK can again help you with that pricing available to add those products. On the Sage 100 Cloud Manufacturing side, that's where we really get into some very specifics about I want to be able to make to the sales order line. I do bench repair and warranty. I need to do enhanced scheduling or capacity planning, product configuration, or I have field service. Those are the types of solutions that we have in that second lane. And sometimes people need to jump from one to the other. And the nice thing is that Sage 100 Cloud Manufacturing does just about exactly everything that production management does, but a whole lot more. So I just wanted to make you aware that there are a couple of different products. The one thing we've learned over the history with Sage is they love to change the name of products. So you'll see a work order has now kind of become production management. We had a product, Job Ops, Sage 100 Cloud Manufacturing. Again, there was a change made here just about 2 weeks ago that the slide needs to be updated for. It will not be called Production Management Makes It Order. There is another name that's going to be released for that. And again, these are just kind of the features, functions of which option do I fit into. Production management, again, is basically going to return all of your inventory items, return all your manufactured items to inventory. Very little customizations done. We explode sub-assemblies, etc. And then, of course, on the Sage 100 Cloud Manufacturing side, there's a lot more options there. So let's talk about production management. So Sage Production Management was released in May of this year. It requires version 2019, and PU2 is preferred. It has several new features in it. A couple of those are our dynamic inventory and dynamic labor. And we'll talk about that when we get into it. But one of the things everybody loves to hate about Sage 100 is you got to do data entry, you got to print your register, and then you've got to update your register. And that dynamic function we're talking about alleviates some of that from the manufacturing perspective and allows inventory, parts, materials to be issued dynamically to the work ticket as well as labor. Another thing everybody hated about work order was that once you release the work order, it was pretty much locked in stone. And this now allows you to edit anything within the work ticket all the way through to final close. We've got some simplified views and transaction entry. And the other thing that we've added is the ability now to also post costs from AP direct to the work ticket. So if you have like a third-party freight bill that you're paying out of AP, and that cost needs to go to manufacturing, you can certainly do that and add that right into the cost of the work ticket that you're producing. Steps are now editable again all the way through. You can renumber, add, and change them at any time. We track an original and a revised budget. We'll take a look at those. A new feature is our status by step, so you can track where you are in the production process, as well as tracking any change orders or rework steps. And a big one that I hear some good comments on is the fact that you can now tie an entire step to a vendor and cut a PO for that outside processing right there inside the software. On the material side, because we are now fully integrated with inventory, we have all of that grid capability, being able to right-click and drill into item maintenance and item inquiry. We also can populate that materials tab from one of three sources. A template, which is kind of our replacement for a routing, a bill of materials, or importing it from a flat file if you have a CAD system that's producing a drawing and you want to import those parts into that work ticket. You can also link the material to a PO. We have an alias item. You can also change the step, change the parts, do whatever you need to do with the work ticket at any point in time, as well as you can actually issue the material right here in this particular screen. Notice this is now going to be a data entry field, and we'll talk about that. That's our dynamic material. The totals are a little bit, I think, more easier to read than what they were in work order. They make more sense. Work order used the term standard, which really was the budget, but everybody confused that with standard cost. And so we tried to clean some of that up and give you some better reporting from a totals perspective. In addition, we have a migration wizard that will convert your work order data over to production management. Please be aware when you install production management on your system, it does make work order read only for all companies in that system. So you got to be ready to really go if you're going to do that, because we do kind of put work order into read only mode. The MRP module was replaced by a module called Inventory Requirements Planning. We did release that back in July. I will show that to you today as well. And then we want to make clear, and a lot of people have had questions about this, production management is available for both perpetual end users and the subscription end users, which is called Sage 100 Cloud. So it is available on both. I do want to make you clear, though, the dynamic material and labor functionality is not available for the perpetual end user. That is a cloud function only. So this is actually inventory requirements planning. It replaces the MRP module. One thing everybody hated about MRP is that it did a great job calculating everything, but then it just printed a report. You kind of had to then work through the report to figure out what you still wanted to do. IRP is what we call inventory requirements planning for short. it now allows you to have an interactive dashboard where you can override and you can then click a button and create purchase orders if you would like to do that. And for those that don't have a work order or production management, IRP actually works to just help you buy and do your inventory demand and make sure you're buying parts in the right time and your inventory material in the right time. It is editable. You can change vendor, you can change quantity, you can change unit cost, you can drill into the details, and then of course the big one is be able to create the PO right from within the screen once you have done all your data entry and you've edited things the way you want it to be. Same is true on the finished goods side. We will generate work tickets. It's just a different dashboard, but it works the exact same way. You can always override the production quantity that we recommend. You can then turn around and create those work tickets with a single click of a button. So get your production going very quickly at that rate. I'm going to skip this real quick. I am going to do the demo. I wanted to move on to a couple other slides real quick. You all will have to forgive me. I'm actually doing this from my parents' home in a rural setting, and my shop floor will not work with their internet connection. So I apologize for that. But I did want to briefly also kind of discuss the fact that we released a brand new application with production management for a mobile device. This is called Shop Floor. It is on the Sage price sheet. And what this allows you to do is to issue material out of inventory into a work ticket, track the labor on that work ticket, do your make to stock completions, and manage any status changes. It's available for Windows, iOS, and Android. It does require the mobility for manufacturing module, which is on the Sage price sheet. And then there is an upgrade out of the shop floor user into a product called Manufacturing 100. And we just get into some deeper functionality in that product. So it depends on what you guys want to do and how you want to capture those transactions on the shop floor, which product is the fit. But it's very cool because it is real time. We real time read the Sage 100 database, and we do real time write back to the Sage 100 database. So we eliminate data entry in the office, but give everybody real time information as to what's going on the shop floor with every work ticket. This is kind of the process of how it works. We start off with creating a work ticket. We've got quantity required here, quantity used. That's where we're telling it how many we've actually issued into the work ticket. As you can see on this very first line, none have been issued. So we go out to the scanner, we do the scanning of the transaction and issue that material. That comes back through our mobility module, and then it updates the inventory, or excuse me, the work ticket right here with the quantity used. So there's no data entry done on that. It does it all automatically itself. And that dynamic function creates the work ticket transaction as well as relieves inventory instantly of that item, and that quantity on hand is updated. I'll do it inside the software without the handheld and show you that same effect. So these are, again, just some of the things that the product does. Now, for those people who had Work Order Scan, which was another Scanco product, WOScan, this does replace WOScan. We can talk about how that transition is done when you move over to production management. But this is really where the future's going, because it makes it a lot more real time and no more syncing with that SQL database. All right, let's just go ahead and jump over. I don't think I really skipped anything there. And let's take a look at the product. So this is Sage 100 version 2019. And what I'm going to do is just kind of go through a day in the life, if you will. And we're going to just kind of look at how this would really kind of flow and what would happen. So everything for us really starts with a sales order, right? Because that's where your demand gets created. So I'm just going to go in and create a sales order. You guys could probably do this in your sleep. You're probably better at it than I am. But I'll go in here and we'll create a sales order, and this customer wants 100 of those. Well, we don't have any. We're 71 short. So not a problem, because production management and IRP are going to help us resolve that. And I'm going to create one more just for grins. Same item, just so you can kind of see how this works. And let's say they want 250 of those. All right. So now I have my demand. Now, of course, I pick somebody who doesn't have a tax schedule. All right, so now I have demand. So really what happens next is we go to the inventory requirements planning module. And in this module, it's super complicated, right, folks? There's 3 whole menu options in the whole module. But the power behind it is how we do our calculations and the data entry, automated data entry that we provide for you. So this is my first screen. This is my generation screen. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to tell the system what I want it to go look at and what I want it to calculate. Now I'm going to clear my previous calculations so I can start from scratch. We can plan by inventory or by work ticket. I'm going to plan by inventory because when we do that, it takes all of our reorder points into consideration as well. We can look at just items we produce or just items that we purchase if we want to do that, or both. And then we have what we call our cutoff date. Now the cutoff date is simply saying, I may have work tickets and I may have sales orders that are due, let's say in March of 2020. Well, I don't need to mess with those right now. All I really need to do is tell me what I need to deal with by tomorrow. So let's say we want to then put a cutoff date in of tomorrow, which is Friday the 13th. Ooh, I didn't realize that. Tomorrow's Friday the 13th. But we all know that we can't get material in one day from a vendor. We can't a lot of times produce the item that we want to produce in one day. So if we check the box to include lead time, what that does for us is it analyzes the entire database. We then deduct all of those due dates. From them, we deduct the lead time, and we come up with a newly calculated date. It's basically, it says, this is my action date. I need to take action by this date. If that action date falls on or before our cutoff date, then we include that in our recommendation. So this is beginning to give you some of that just-in-time inventory to get it there when you need it. So once I have everything set, and you'll have to forgive me, my demo data doesn't have enough to worry about a cutoff date, we just then turn around and generate our work file. Now, what we did there is we went out and we analyzed every single item. We looked at what we have on hand, what our reorder point is, what our sales orders are calling for, what we already have on work tickets, what we have on purchase orders, and we did all of that math. And we came back with then now items we need to produce. So this is now my interactive dashboard for the items that I have set as a make type item. As you can see, we've got, it looks like 4 items here that we need to make because we are looking currently only at items we need to produce. Now that desktop 400 that I just put those sales orders in for is listed here, and it says we need to make 329. We provide you summary level information here that shows how many you have on sales order, what you have on hand, what you have coming in on work tickets, and then it says we're short 326. But it's telling me to make 329, and that's because we're including all of the reorder point information with that. So we're not only building the demand, we're also going to recommend that you build your own stock backup if you have that set. I'm going to put these top 3 on hold. Putting something on hold just says, hey, I don't want to deal with it right now. It doesn't really do anything. It doesn't put any records on hold anywhere in the software. It just says, exclude these from what I'm trying to work with right now. Now I'm kind of a control nut, and I like to know more detail than summary. That's great, fine, but show me the details. So when I click on a line here and I drill into our detail screen, this is now going to be very similar to what you had out of MRP. Here's now the list of everything that this item has a demand on and or has a supply. It's showing me my projected balance. Now, forgive me, this is some of the data we use to QA the product, so I'm missing some dates there. But this is going to show it to you in date progression order. So as you can see, as we go down through here, here are the sales orders that I need to ship with it. Here are the work tickets that are supplying it, and all the way down through showing me what my balance is going to be. Now, when we come back down here, that's when it says, oh, we're short 326 because we do have one that's coming in later next year. So that's telling me now if I had to put my cutoff date at the end of the year, it would have said I needed to make 1,326. So that's why that cutoff date becomes an important factor. You have a little bit of control here if you want to place something on hold and say, yeah, I'm not really ready to deal with that yet. Maybe I don't want to deal with this sales order that needs 75. Some people have asked me, they're like, well, what customer is that for? All those types of things. These screens are fully compliant with Custom Office, and you can certainly add some of those fields into these screens. We didn't do it by default because we know everybody has their own requirements, but these are editable and can be customized through Custom Office. So that gives you that ability. All right, so I put these 75 on hold. I'm going to return now to my item. Notice that my recommended quantity has now changed to 254 because I excluded those 75, so we've updated this. Here's what I tell people all the time. We do all the math for you, but you get to make the final decision. So if you say, hey, it doesn't make sense for me to make 254, I am going to go ahead and make 350. That makes better sense for me. So you have complete control here of how you want the quantity you want to make. Once you're happy with that, all you have to do is click create the work ticket, and we will now go out and build the work ticket for you. So that will be done automatically. I didn't have to manually create anything. And now when I click on OK, I want you guys to watch the screen and see what happens. So now all of a sudden my desktop disappeared because I've now done the requirements for that, but I had some additional items show up. These are my subassemblies that I need in that parent item. So these subassemblies are now required. So this screen will constantly refresh until you get to the point that you have everything built that you need to build. Well, not built, but you have the work tickets to build them created. So this will constantly refresh. There is one other thing I'd like to point out that not a lot of people realize. One of the decisions that planners make all the time is, I don't have time to build these 3694, 3694 cabinets. I'm going to have to go buy those. So if you click on an item, you have the ability right here to move that to the buy side. So you can make a decision and say, well, today I'm not going to make it, I'm going to buy it. And then we'll show up now on our purchases board. So the purchase board is the exact same thing, but these are now the raw materials that we buy. These also automatically have included all the demand from the work tickets I just created. Even though I generated before I created the work tickets, we do auto update and include everything for any transactions and generations that are done inside of IRP itself. So this is no different than what you saw, other than we now have a vendor number, a unit cost, and we're looking at our purchase quantity. Because if our purchase unit of measure is different in inventory than what our standard unit measure is, that will impact us, and we're showing you that translation here. So you can see we brought the vendor in from the primary vendor, but as I'm looking down through here, I see, well, there's only one item I need to buy from whoever Comru is. I could probably get that same item, let's say, from Electric Supply. So I have the ability to do a one-time override and change the vendor that I would like to buy that from. This is not changing the primary vendor out in the item master file. We are simply changing it to make a buying decision today. Now you can imagine this list gets pretty overwhelming, so we can actually go up here and we can filter the list by any of these data elements that you see listed here. So maybe I'm just doing the buying for warehouse 000. So I've added now a filter up here at the top by double clicking on the 000. So I will now only see items that belong to warehouse 000. I can further filter and say, and I only want to deal with the vendor of Electric Supply. So I've added multiple filters here, and now I'm seeing the data just for Electric Supply and warehouse 000. Now, just like on the make side, you can put these items on hold, and we can deal with only the certain items that we want to deal with. So let's take this memory chip, for example. It says I need 628 of those. And again, just like you saw on the make side, we've got all of the details at the summary level information out here. And we have our drill into our details. So just like we saw there, now you've got your projections out here on your balance as well. A couple of things, though, that are different here. First of all, we do allow you to buy direct to the work ticket. Now, if we're buying the stock, what that says is put it in inventory and I'm going to issue it later. But if I come down here at the bottom, notice that here's some work tickets that are due out later. Here's actually that work ticket I just created a moment ago that on 12/12, that's the first work ticket. There's the 708 that are required for that. If I turned around and I said, hey, I want to buy those direct to the work ticket, I want to hard allocate them on the PO, I can change that and say, I want to buy those to order. What that will do for me then is it will cut a PO line direct to the work ticket. When they're received, they'll be automatically issued into the work ticket and bypass inventory. Now, if you're looking through any of these and you say, I'm not ready to deal with that yet, you can put those on hold as well. So a buyer has complete control here on what they include or exclude and how they deal with buying it. Once I return over here, it's now updated my quantity to 614. It's got all of my details out here. And maybe when I was talking to the vendor on the phone, he says, well, if you buy 750 of those, I can get those for you at $110 a piece. So you have complete control here over the quantity and the unit cost. And when you're finished and ready to do that, all you do is click the button to create the work ticket, the PO, create a new one, add to it one at the status of new and a status of hold. I'll go ahead and just create a brand new one. When I get done, it's going to come back and it says 2 purchase order lines were generated. And that's kind of odd because I only ordered one item, but I'll show you why in a second. When I click OK, that line item disappears because I've now done my completion. It's no longer an item I need to purchase. And the idea here is for all of you purchasing managers out there, when the list is blank, you can go home because you've done your work for today. Now, that's really up to your boss, not me, but that's what we tell everybody. All right, so let's real quick, we'll go take a look at that purchase order and then we'll jump deeply into production management itself. So on that purchase order that we just created, it is now out there. There's my purchase order to date 12/12 to Electric Supply. And when I look at the lines tab on that, you'll see the memory chip is listed twice because I ordered 708 of those direct to the work ticket. And that's why I have multiple lines. So you may have to work with SWK to customize your PO form to pretty much summary level because the vendor really doesn't care. They just need to know you ordered 750. But please note that it was at the $110 that I put into the IRP module to be able to buy those at. So that does all of that work for me. Quick print, email it, do whatever you need to do with paperless to get that PO over to the vendor. All right, so let's go over and take a look at production management. So here is my production management. This is my work ticket entry. I'm going to resize this a little bit here. So when I look at work ticket entry, obviously we are now fully in the framework and the business framework for stage 100. You will notice that my work ticket is now 12 characters or 12 digits instead of the 7 that work order had. So you can have a lot larger scope. We found that some people were doing some date-based work ticket numbering and some things like that. So this really gives you the capability to do that. Now this is the work ticket I just created out of IRP. So this is that to build that desktop. There is the 350 that I needed because I've got a yield percentage. It's calculated up, scaled that up to say 354. You've got your options to do auto issuing and all that kind of stuff if you want to do that and back flushing just like work order did. In my steps tab, when we look at the steps tab, again, we're fully grid compliant now, and you can see all of the steps here that are required for this. Notice the step is now 6 digits instead of 4. I'll explain a little bit of why we expanded that here in a second, because I'm going to manually create a work ticket as well. I want to show you some capabilities that we've added to the software. But just in general here with the steps, a couple of things that are new. The status code is new. This allows you now to know exactly where you are on every step of the process. So you've got all the lists here. The status codes are user definable. You guys come up with those. These can be captured either inside the software or they can be captured back out on the actual manufacturing 100. Let me get over here and go back to that screen real quick. So I don't know if you guys can see it or not. Actually, it's not on that screen. That's an old one. They didn't update it. There it is. There's the status change. So if you wanted to do a status change, you can do that here. We also allow status changes from the labor tracking as well. But the point of that is that customer service can now see exactly where we are with the process. One of the things that everyone absolutely struggled with in work order was that when you release that work order, pretty much everything was locked in stone. With us, the work ticket is fully editable, even if it's released all the way through to final completion. Therefore, if you have something that fails your QC process, you could come in and add a step at any point in time. And we now have a checkbox that says, is this a rework step? The point of that is to be able to analyze the data later and go, oh, we went over budget because somebody didn't do something right and the product was bad and we had to redo it. So this gives you some ability to track that information and see what's going on. Another thing that's new is you can now tie an entire step to a vendor. So if you do any outside processing, I work with a lot of companies that work with some metal products. They do galvanizing. Maybe they have to have something X-ray tested or stress tested, whatever those things are. However you do that, a step now can be completely outsourced to a vendor. And once you've assigned the vendor, we actually have a button where you can cut the purchase order to that vendor right here. You can also cut purchase orders for these things from IRP if you want to do that. The quantity completed is optional. That's a progress meter. That's not the work ticket completion. That's just a progress meter. This work ticket is to make 350, right? We've got 350 out here. If I work 2 hours and I get 325 of them done, and the budget called for 354 hours, I'm doing a great job and I'm going to meet my budget, or do much better than the budget. So this is kind of a progress meter to help us figure out where we stand. Everything we have has an original and a revised budget. Once the first transaction hits the work ticket, the original is locked down and revised becomes available. We do also have our materials budget for everything. So this is the dollars coming over from the materials tab. And we keep track of the remaining hours that are left to be performed on the step after we've put some labor on it. So we hope that you guys like those new features and those new things. Again, you can change a step. You can actually renumber it. If I said, oh, I want that now to be step 25, not a problem. Renumber it to step 25. You're good to go, however you want to do that. On the materials tab, very similar to what you've seen already, grid-based. We now have our inventory parts listed here that came in from the bill and or from the template. Notice that we do now support miscellaneous items. So I know bill of materials still does not support miscellaneous items, but you can add those to our template and we do merge all of that together for you. You've got your step assignment, you've got your required. Remember, the issued column is now a data entry column once the work ticket is released for those people that are on subscription. Also, you will now notice that in my work ticket, after I bought the material in IRP, I now have a purchase order number tied to this step. So this item is not being sourced from inventory. Instead, it is being sourced by a vendor on a purchase order. And I can see we've ordered a total of 708 on that PO. None have been received and none have been invoiced as of this point. The promise date here is what does drive our buying dates, and those allow us to determine when we need the material. That actually is what drives IRP for when we need to buy those materials. You can edit these at any point in time. I could come in and say, hey, I forgot to put a part on the bill. I need this. I'll just put this capacitor on here. It goes on step 30, and we need 500 of those. So again, fully editable at any point in time. Once we edit those and add those items, our totals do get automatically updated in the projected column. You'll notice there's now a projected variance. That's because I added something that was different from the budget. Materials can get a little overwhelming sometimes to look at. So if you want to look at them by step, you can do that. Just drop down your step filter and then take a look at those by step, and we'll show you only the parts for that individual step. The totals work the same way. If you want to see those totals for that step, you can do that and get those numbers. Now, everybody hated in work order the fact that you had to go do a work order transaction to release the work order, right? And then you had to update a register, and then you had to post the register, and that's what released the work ticket. We've changed all of that, and our work tickets are now just done with a drop down, and you can say this is now released. Now, we've also added the capability, and I believe mine's set up correctly, that as soon as I click on accept, I can now auto release the work ticket. So if I go back in now to work ticket 30,000, that was automatically released because I have mine set up to do that. We can also auto print the traveler and the pick sheet at the time you do the auto release if you want to do that. That is option controlled, and it is also security controlled. The user has to have those rights. But once a work ticket is released, we now can start entering transactions against it. So a couple of things on transactions. Let's talk about that dynamic functionality. So now that I have released that, all of these transactions, you'll notice I have a quantity that I can now issue. So I'm going to pick on this capacitor real quick. And again, I'm going to right click and go into inventory. I do have to have quantity on hand. If I'm going to issue this to the work ticket, I have to have a quantity on hand to be able to issue. And that is because we do real-time cost that transaction. If you want to use it just like work order did, that's not a problem. Go to your work ticket transaction entry. This is now fully batch compliant, so you have that capability. You can come in and do a material issue. You could go in and now, oops, sorry, I forgot to put the ticket number in. And now then you can issue anything you want, and you can take it negative. That's not a problem. This works just like work order did. But for those people who want that added functionality of real-time posting, you can now do that here in the work ticket. So let's say I want to issue all 500 of those. I want to go ahead and do that. As soon as I click on accept, that transaction gets written. And now when I go back into my materials tab, it shows that 500 have been issued. There is a transaction now in the work ticket dated today and timestamped. It has been costed. And in addition to that, we have now removed that item. You'll notice I no longer have that 5,500 or whatever the number was. My on hand has changed. And in my transactions, when I look at my transactions for today, there's the 500 I just took out. One of the things that people hated about work order 2 was the inventory transaction provided you only a journal reference. Well, guess what? We're doing the same thing. However, we are tracking the work ticket number and the step in additional fields here. So you have that information readily available and you know exactly what work ticket that went to and what step it was issued into. Now, for all of those that are having heart palpitations on the accounting side and go, oh no, but my work in process isn't updated. You are correct. It's not at this point. However, at the end of the day, all you have to do is run a daily material usage register, and that register will generate for you the GL effect of all of those transactions that were posted into work tickets from inventory throughout the day. So that way we allow the real-time posting to occur in the work ticket. Oops, sorry, I went to the wrong screen. We allow the real-time posting to occur here in the work ticket itself, costing that item, and you'll notice my totals are already updated. I've already got current cost in there, so work in process has been updated in the work ticket. The daily materials register just allows you to update the general ledger for that effect. All right, next let's talk about labor. So I do have a brand new time menu, and I can do labor entry here. So labor entry this is where we are also batch compliant. And this is where the labor entries would come from the Manufacturing 100 or shop floor user remote app as well. Or you can do data entry here. Here's your different types of transactions like you had inside of work order. I'm just going to do a basic labor entry. I'll pick an employee number here. We'll pick a work ticket of 30,000. And I'll pick my step number as just step 10. Now it knows what work center and activity code that is. It knows what earnings code associated with that. And now you have your start time and end time. I'm just going to say we started this at 10 a.m. today, and that we're now finishing, let's say, at 1:30 p.m. That's calculated my 3.5 hours. If I wanted to document the work that I performed, I can do that. You can put whatever comments you want in there, and we can also change the status of the step there and say this is now in production. Let's do it this way. All right, and then this is your progress meter of how many did you complete. So we were doing a work ticket to make 350. Maybe I got 25 of those done at this point. Now, again, for our subscription users, once that data entry is done, and whether that's done here or whether that is done on our Manufacturing 100 or shop floor app, it doesn't matter. As soon as I click on accept, that entry has now been written right to the work ticket. So let's go check the work ticket and see what happened. So here's now my work ticket. If I go to the inquiry tab, notice that we have the ability for you to look at a lot of data here, just being able to drill into different types. If I click on labor, that labor on 12/12 has already been posted for that 3.5 hours, and we have fully costed that labor to the work ticket. My totals have been updated now because I have labor costs in them. And when I look at my steps, that was step 10, you'll notice that there's my 25 that I have completed so far that I put my progress meter on. And because I had 3.5 hours, we've deducted that and now calculated our remaining hours on that step. On the inquiry tab as well, when I look at my status changes, let's just drill into those for step 10. There I can see there was my actual transaction for the status change, shows that it was changed at 1:37. We keep track of the old status, the new status, and then there is the comment there that I typed in as well. So one data entry screen, and we created all of those different transactions and put all of that together for you inside the work ticket. Now, if that data had come in from the handheld and it was wrong, hey, not a problem. Go right back in here. This data entry screen you can use to turn around and say, I need to find that entry. They were wrong. They really started at 9 a.m. So I can still edit that, and they really didn't get done until 2. And they did not do a great job. If I could type today, that would be helpful. Sorry about that. Can't spell. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. There we go. I don't see there. I can't type. All right, so we can update any of that information we need to, and maybe they really only got 15 done. They lied. So once I have updated that entry, and again, whether that was here inside the software or from the handheld, it does not matter. But when we go back in now and look at that work ticket, on the step, you'll notice that my new remaining hours is different. My quantity completed is now updated. My inquiry on my status change, I didn't really change the status on that. But I do have a labor entry that got changed because now I'm up to 5 hours. And so we updated and recosted all of that, as well as updated the totals. So as you can see, it's much more dynamic than what work order ever was. Now, again, for the controllers that are having heart palpitations about all of that, We do have a daily labor register update here. You run that update and you go ahead and choose the batch that you want to update. When you have done that, that locks those entries in stone and they can no longer be edited or changed. So if they're still wrong, you just do a negative quantity or a negative hours to remove them, or however you need to do that to fix it. So you can always add additional transactions. You just can't remove the ones that are there once they have been posted. And the reason that's important, again, another new feature that we have here is with our WIP reconciliation. With the WIP reconciliation, we now allow you to reconcile back to a certain date. So I could be sitting here on the 12th of December and still run my reconciliation as of the 11th of, or excuse me, the 30th of November. And that allows me to go back and find out what it was at that point. Because we are real-time posting all of this data, we want to make sure that we give you the ability to go back in time, because people are not going to stop working on December 1st just because yesterday was the last day of the month. So this gives you the ability to do all of that. All right, a couple more things here and we'll wrap up. Now, we've looked at creating a work ticket. I do want to show you one other thing here with work ticket creation. I'm going to create a new one here just inside work ticket entry. Find my desktop 400 I like to pick on. And we'll just say we're going to make 10 of them this time. Now, when I'm manually creating the work ticket, I have the ability up here to say I want to copy from. Now, you can create your work tickets manually from 4 different destinations. You can go, if there's a bill of material on file, we're going to use that. If you don't have a bill on it, but you have created a template, we can just use the template only. You can also copy any open work ticket or closed work ticket. So those are 4 different data sources where work order only let you to create them from scratch, or you could create them from bill of materials. We allow you now to do from any of these destinations. And if you wanted to manually create this, you just wouldn't use the copy button. You just jump over to steps and material and start filling it out. What I really wanted to show you here was this option, explode subassemblies. We now provide you the ability to explode all subassemblies into one single work ticket for that production item. So when I do it that way and I explode the subassembly, you will notice on my steps tab, I now have a whole bunch of additional steps, steps 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way down to 9. Then I have my parent steps that are done by the tens, if you will. So that is why we expanded the step number, with the ability to give you those additional steps. There's a setting that allows you to choose on what increment do we actually step all of these things out at, if you will. So most people are actually using the parent item at the hundreds level, leaving 99 steps in between each parent item for subassembly explosion. We also exploded the materials. So you can see there's a lot larger material list here now, and those materials are exploded out into the individual steps that require them. See, there's a step 4, there's a step 5. So those are subassembly items that have all been exploded into a single parent work ticket. So I did want to point that out because that's kind of a big deal. A lot of people are really liking that. All right, the other thing is here on work ticket transaction entry. Again, we kind of talked about this a little bit, but we cut the transactions down to 4 types. If you want to go back and backflush your auto issue labor or materials, this is where that's done. Those entries get automatically created. You can also enter them here. They work just like they did with work order. But the thing I wanted to point out was our completion entry. So if I want to do a completion, and I'll just pick on my 30,000 work ticket here again, we've added a new costing method, and the new costing method we've added is standard cost. So a lot of times the lower of actual or budget, the actual, that didn't really work out for partial completions. So we do now allow you to return it to inventory at the item standard cost that you've established within inventory, regardless of what's in work in process. And then we just settle up on that with a variance when we close the work ticket. So that's something that's new. You can then turn around and tell it how many you want to complete. And the other thing we've added here, because in work order, you had to do a completion, update it, and then you had to go do a closing entry and update it. If this is the last entry, you can now close and complete all in one step. So you don't have to do multiple transactions, and we'll handle all of that for you. The closed transaction type that we have has the exact same thing. We're going to default this to a checkbox of yes, but you can also close and put a quantity in the completion there as well. So those are things that have now changed and allow you to be able to do things a little more efficiently, if you will. All right. The only other thing, everything else we've got pretty much matches work order in all of this. We talked a little bit about that WIP reconciliation report. We do have Explorer views that are now also available. So if you're familiar with Business Insights Explorer, we have an open work ticket history and a work ticket labor view that allows you to see all of that data right there in those dashboard kind of views. So anybody who had our work order efficiency solution from the originally ACS and then Scanco, those are now kind of handled here with these dashboards, these Business Insights Explorer views, instead of using the dashboards that were in those applications. Utilities menus where our convert work order data is. So this allows you to convert that over and put any of your open work tickets or transactions and your setup information in here. I did want to point out in the inquiries menu, in our work ticket inquiry, this is now a list of not only all of our open work tickets, but notice I have my deleted, and if I had any work tickets in history, those would be listed here as well. So I don't have to jump to a work order inquiry view and a work order history view. I have a single place where I can find all historical and open work tickets at any point in time. And so if I pull up that work ticket we've been playing with, you'll see all the same data here. The steps are displayed a little bit more in a kind of a grid view here of that information, but you can drill into any step you want to see and see all that data about that step. You also can look at your materials here, see what those are, drill into those materials, see if there's transactions issued on those. And the inquiry then shows all the same things we saw over in the other section, as well as the totals here. So that doesn't matter whether it's deleted, whether it's in history, open, released, et cetera, it doesn't really matter. Those are all available for you. One final thing I think, point this out from the very beginning in the PowerPoint, but if you want to do an AP invoice, that is now something that you can also post a cost to a work ticket. So if I had a work invoice here, I'll just make one up, right? Now in the lines tab, you'll see that we have the ability to do and I'm just going to pick some GL account here. There you can now add it to a work ticket. So I can say I want that to go to work ticket 30,000, and that goes into my install power supply step. When I update that, that becomes now a work in process cost. In fact, it even overrode my GL account there because I tied it out to a work ticket and said, oh, you've got to have the work in process there. So we've hard coded that to now use that work ticket's work in process account to post that to. So that's something new that wasn't available in the other side as well. All right, well, I'm pretty much kind of gone through the whole module in a very, very quick fashion and high level. I wanted to jump over here real quick. Sorry, I know I'm jumping down a little bit here. All right, so for those of you that might have had our work order efficiency, we do transition that into production management. We just need to have a call with you that can discuss what you're using, make sure there is the feature comparison there. We did not write production management to be a one-to-one match with what work order efficiency did. So that's why we kind of need to have a discussion, make sure that we're not missing something there. We did have a module some time ago called Purchase Agent. That is still available for version 2018 and prior. That was the predecessor to IRP, and it was based on that same functionality. So those are the migration paths. For those that had JOScan, that was for our advanced manufacturing or work order scan. We will transition you over to manufacturing 100 at no charge. There is an install fee. It does require the mobility for manufacturing. And in the event you were doing any QA tracking and work order scan, we do not currently have that in manufacturing 100, but that is on our roadmap to be able to add that. All right. I think that's pretty much it. I don't know if you guys want to open up the floor for some questions, or if not, maybe everybody gets a few minutes back in their day. So I'll let you guys kind of tell me what's going on.
That was great. We actually have a couple questions for you that have come in.
All right.
So number one, will production management ever have make to order?
Will ever have make to order. So the original plan was that we were going to merge the advanced manufacturing and production management into a single module. That is still the plan. However, that merge plan has been delayed. It's a very long story as to why, but basically Sage has put some additional programming requirements on us that we weren't expecting. So we're just not comfortable delivering and announcing any type of time frame where we did originally have that time frame. Right now, we're just saying we don't know when that's going to happen. That's why there are still 2 paths in manufacturing. So if you need make to order, you would jump over here to the Sage 100 Cloud Manufacturing. One thing that we are going to do is just like there's a utility to convert work order to production management, we hope to have out in probably the next 6 weeks a utility to convert work order to Sage 100 Cloud Manufacturing and a utility to convert production management over to Sage 100 Cloud Manufacturing. So we're trying to provide the pathway to get there. At the point all of it does merge, it will just be a single application. Your data is protected. We're going to convert your data. It's going to just be in a single module at that time instead of having to move between PM and Sage 100 Cloud Manufacturing.
Thank you. Next, we have, can you reopen a closed work ticket if you need to add an additional cost?
Unfortunately, you cannot. You couldn't do that in work order either, right? So we can't go back and reopen a work ticket. That said, there is a setting, and let me see if I can find it real quick here. We have this this area in the software called a work ticket class. And the work ticket class is where we can kind of define some different job types. And I'm looking for, maybe it's a setting and setup. I always get confused with where it is. So here's an option. See this on the labor tab, when I set up my production management module, it's not by work ticket class, it's in total. Do I want to allow labor entry to closed work tickets? So even if the work ticket is closed, you could still issue labor to it. We will just, instead of hitting work in process, we're going to hit the variance account assigned to that work ticket class type. We don't have the same thing for material. We do hope that you've got material issued correctly. And then, of course, AP transactions you can't. So labor you can add after the fact, so you don't need to reopen it. But no, you cannot reopen a work ticket that's already closed. And part of that is because you've already put the item in inventory, and we can't guarantee you that that item still exists in inventory because you might have already shipped it to the customer. So there's just a whole cascading effect of things that happen if you have to reopen the work ticket, and we can't guarantee the data is there to do that.
Okay. Next, we have AP to work order. Does this update the last cost field in inventory if it only goes to work order? The current version does not.
What we actually do is we book an in and out transaction inside of the item. So if you are buying direct to the work ticket on a purchase order and you have that transaction, because technically we're receiving it to the work ticket, we will book an in and out transaction here for you. So we will follow all of the work ticket, all of the inventory rules. So that way you have full visibility as to what happened, as well as, yes, we're going to update them those last costs on that as well.
Okay. And then next we have, does this now take out the outside processing entry that was required when AP could not directly affect the work order?
Yes. So all of our outside processing, if I'm following the question correctly, is done through a purchase order. So again, if you're going to do a purchase order, and let's say I'm buying an outside process from somebody, and that's typically going to be a service, right? I don't have one set up. Let's just call it service just for fun. Yes, I'll set that up. Of course, this is going to take a little bit, but let's just copy it. And I can just say, yeah, this is an outside service. You've got all your stuff here. You've got your GL accounts, right? So when you put that outside service, let's say that's 5 hours and they're charging us $100 an hour. And I put that now to the work ticket, and we'll put it just to step 10. That now becomes an item on the parts tab inside the work ticket. So what will happen with that, if I'm following your question correctly, now that I have that been added, you'll notice service has now been added to the work ticket. Now I know it's under the materials tab because it's technically a non-inventory item, but any of the non-inventory items and everything, all of those are tied out here directly to the materials tab. But that's now going to cost that into the work ticket based off of what we have in there. I see it's got a 575. I need to go back and make sure I did that right. But that allows us to then buy that outside processing in here. By the way, on the inquiries tab, you also have a purchase order view to see what all purchase orders are tied to that work ticket. Did I get that answered for them?
We'll see. So if the person who
Okay.
asked this question feels like maybe they need a little bit more details, let us know and we can dive into it a little bit more. We do have another question that's come in. In labor entry, it seemed like start date was grayed out so we couldn't be charged. So, I'm sorry, grayed out so couldn't be charged. We sometimes put in labor a day or two later, so need to put in earlier date.
Yeah, I think it's based on the transaction date. So if I go back and say, hey, this was done yesterday or a couple of days ago, and then I pick my employee and I pick my work ticket and I pick my step. Notice how that date. So what we're doing is the date is tied to what the transaction date is, because we're trying to keep that in sync for work in process. So as long as the transaction date is right, then your start date's going to be right as well.
Okay. And then we have a follow-up question to the previous one about outside processing entry. So does this mean there is no outside processing accumulator?
As in a costing bucket, I think what they're asking is there a costing bucket here on the totals tab for outside processing? And the answer is no, we don't have an outside processing bucket for that. That said, again, you guys can write any report you want. You can know that these are certain, when you look at the materials tab, I'm sure there's certain things that you know are outside processing, or that's where you could put a checkbox in here with custom office to do that. But this was all built off of the platform of the advanced manufacturing solution, and that didn't have that, so it didn't get built in here. But you could, of course, make it look however you wanted on any of the reporting that you wanted it to.
Okay. If anyone else has any questions, please feel free to ask them now. If anything comes up after the webinar has ended, please feel free to reach out to your SWK account manager, or you can email the marketing team. You'll get that email address in an email tomorrow along with the recording, and we'll make sure that it gets to the right person who can get you your answers. So with that said,
Yeah. And just so everybody has it, there's my email as well. If you need to communicate with me at all, then you've got that as well.
Oh, we have one more question that's come in. We are a job shop making only 1 or 2 units at the same time. Will this work well for us?
That's probably a bigger discussion than just that one question. Most of the job shop companies I work with actually use the more advanced manufacturing solution. It's called Sage 100C manufacturing, because in that solution, you can build to the sales order line. So if the customer is ordering a quantity of 2, you can create the work ticket right there in the sales order to build that quantity of 2, customize it to what they want it to be, et cetera. So happy to have that conversation. Those are the conversations I have all day long, every day. So I'm more than happy to assist with that. If your account manager can set up a time with me that we could all get on the call and certainly go over that and get deeper into it.
Excellent. Thanks, Darren. Well, that concludes the webinar, everyone. Darren, thank you so much. This was so valuable for our customers. I know there's been a lot of questions regarding production management and work order, so I think we got a lot out of this.
Great. Well, thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it. And I hope everybody has a great rest of the day. And if not, very happy holidays.
Thank you. You as well. Happy holidays. Bye.
All right. Thank you. All right. Bye.